Good morning, or whatever time of day it is that you're watching this. Blendy here, and this is chapter 4, 5, and 6 of Singinabob. If you have not listened to chapter 1, 2, and 3, please listen to that first. So in chapter 1, 2, and 3, David meets Singinabob for the first time in this new room and new world that he has found himself in. And he also meets So, a boy his age that he seems to be totally mesmerized by. They end up eventually in Seesaw's cafe and meet Seesaw, the sort of man pig, I guess you would call him, who runs a little restaurant, and then are taken by Singinabob outside, where David is put on the spot and asked to decide how they are going to find Daggerdoth, this evil man that they are looking for. And somehow, Singinabob and So have this expectation that David is going to be able to tell them where Daggerdoth is. And that's where we find ourselves at the beginning of chapter 4. Chapter 4, Antslock, or D6W7. We were outside. I assumed it was the same outside where So and I had met, but at this point I didn't think I could be sure about anything. Singinabob was still with us. "Okay, David, what should we do now?" Singinabob asked, looking me in the eye. I stared at him. That mouth of mine was hanging open again. "Don't just stand there with your mouth hanging open. We didn't bring you all the way down here to look at the insides of your mouth. Answer the question, David. What do we do now? Where do we go?" I looked at So for help, but he was looking at Singinabob, not at me. "What are you talking about?" I finally uttered. "How the heck do I know where we go? I don't even know where we are, or what we are here for. You've got to give me something to go on. This isn't fair." Singinabob looked at So. "So, I thought you said this guy had the gift. Why is he just standing there with his mouth open? Have we made another mistake?" So looked at me with a sad expression. Then he looked at Singinabob. He seemed to make a decision. "He does have the gift, Singinabob. I can promise you that. David proved himself when Dinglebop had his arms pinned and was trying to get him to talk before he asked for the secret password. David somehow knew not to answer until he heard the actual question. But Singinabob, his gift is that he can make instant decisions when he has something to make an instant decision about. Right now, he has no clue as to why we are here. You can't expect him to use his gift if you haven't given him anything to use it on." So looked confident but scared, like what he had just said might get him into a lot of trouble. Singinabob looked at me. He looked at So. He let out a huge breath of air. "Okay, he needs some information, but I'm not convinced this is the right one, So. Remember, this was your last chance. If he doesn't work out, you know what will happen." So looked distressed. "Yes, I know, Singinabob. Please, just give David a chance to prove himself. I know he is the right one. He has to be. I know it." I listened to all of this back and forth between So and Singinabob, realizing that their conversation was all about me. I didn't like all this pressure being placed on me. Somehow, if I didn't measure up, it wasn't just me who would fail, but something would happen to So as well. I didn't mind being responsible for my own actions, but I didn't like it when my actions directly affected someone else, especially when that someone else was someone I liked, which I did. I liked So a lot, even though there were a lot of questions he had yet to answer. I trusted him. If he said I was the one, then I was going to do everything I could to prove it. Singinabob was still looking at So. "All right, So, tell David what we are trying to do right now. But make it quick. We haven't got all day." "David," So started. looking at me very seriously. By now you know that. So stopped and looked at Singinabob. Look, Singinabob, I have to say his name here. So plug your ears if you have to, but I'm going to say it. Singinabob looked like he was going to complain, but managed a quick, all right, and so continued. You already know that Singinabob is the problem, So started. A problem? Interrupted Singinabob. You describe that no good, moldy mouse as just a problem? Singinabob, please, said So. Don't interrupt. Let me explain it in my own words. You want me to do this quickly, but I can't do that if you keep interrupting me. Singinabob glared at So, but managed to keep his mouth shut. David, let me try this again. Singinabob is a bad guy, a very bad guy. With this, So glanced at Singinabob to see if he was going to interrupt again. But this time, Singinabob looked satisfied with So's description of Singinabob. Singinabob wants to get rid of Singinabob and everything he stands for. You see, well, Singinabob and Singinabob are brothers. But at this, it was too much for Singinabob. That lousy, door-knocking, tree-bashing, flea-mashing, dog-digging, cat-tailing grump of a Garrett is no brother of mine. I disown him. He's not related to me. Let him die. So looked at Singinabob. Look, Singinabob, maybe it would be better if you gave me a few minutes alone with David to explain everything to him in my own words. You might find that, easier. Singinabob appeared to think about this. 5 minutes. So that's all you get. 5 minutes and then I'm coming back. If David hasn't decided what we are doing, then both of you are finished. I will put an end to all of this and move on without you. You know what I mean by this, So, don't you? 5 minutes, So replied. And yes, I know what you mean. Go then, give us our 5 minutes, and David will have a decision for you. With this, Singinabob disappeared. And when I say disappeared, I mean disappeared. 1 second he was there, and the next he was gone. I did not have time to think about this as So started talking again. Very quickly. Look, David, Singinabob has people who work for him. One of them is called Daggerdoth. He's not a nice man. He is here somewhere in this world. He is here to try and kill Singinabob, and you and I as well, no doubt. Daggerdoth has to be found. If he succeeds in killing Singinabob, this world will never be the same. Trust me, what you need to do is tell us where Daggerdoth is. I interrupted. But So, how the heck am I supposed to know where he is? Am I supposed to just guess? I don't even know this world or the places in it. He could be anywhere. Now So interrupted me. I know, David, this seems crazy. I get it. But I believe you do know where Daggerdoth is, the same way you knew not to answer those questions. You just knew, didn't you? You didn't know why you knew, but you listened to your intuition and acted accordingly. Now you need to do the same. Don't think about it. Don't try to figure out where Daggerdoth is. Just listen to your inner feelings and decide. Remember, your decision does not have to make sense in a logical way. I closed my eyes. This was ridiculous, I thought. So was wrong. I didn't have a clue where Daggerdoth was. How could I? I'd never even met the man. How the heck would I know where he was? But So said I did have the gift, and I trusted So. And I did seem to know not to answer those questions. And I remember thinking that it didn't make any logical sense to not answer them. But somehow I knew what I had to do. Daggerdoth, Daggerdoth, Daggerdoth. The name Daggerdoth kept repeating itself over and over, but it was like the voice inside my head kept getting quieter and quieter and then disappeared altogether. My mind went blank, and I couldn't even tell you for how long. I was in some kind of a trance. The next thing I remembered was hearing So's voice calling my name, but it was as if he was in another room. I could barely hear him speaking. David! David! Wake up! Our 5 minutes is almost up. You have to wake up and tell us what to do. David! Please! Wake up! Suddenly, my eyes popped open. I was wide awake. So was standing in front of me, looking relieved that I was awake, but also worried that I might not have an answer for him. We have to go to Anslock, I said. Anslock? So replied, looking confused. Anslock, I said. That's where we have to go. Singinabob! So yelled. Singinabob! Suddenly, just as quickly as he had disappeared, Singinabob was once again standing at our side. Well, said Singinabob, where are we going? Anslock, replied So. Anslock? Repeated Singinabob. That's what David says, and I believe him, said So. But that's ridiculous, said Singinabob. Anslock is in D1. It's not even this world. You know that. Your protege has failed you, So. It's over for both of you. I'm going to get Digglebuck to take care of you. You're done with. Stop, yelled So. Listen, Singinabob. He has to be right. Where did he get the name Anslock from? Anslock may not be in this world, but neither is it in his world. He has to have come up with a name somehow, and it can't just be a lucky guess. Anslock has got to be right specifically because it doesn't make any sense. Your logical mind, and mine for that matter, would never in a million years think of going to Anslock to find Daggerdoth. But what do we know? We only know what we know. We don't have access to the information that David has. That's why he has the gift. That's the proof that he is actually the one. I could see Singinabob thinking about this, and thinking hard. There was silence all around us. No one spoke. I could tell this was an important moment, and that it was better for me to remain quiet and let Singinabob make his own decision. It's crazy, Singinabob finally stated. Every bone and quill in my body says he's got to be wrong. Daggerdoth is here, somewhere in this world. He was seen just 2 days ago, and he couldn't possibly get to D6W1 this quickly. But, on the other hand, I was warned that if it was true that David had the gift, then I would need to trust him, even when his decisions went against everything I understood or believed. Okay, we'll go to Anslock. Come, we have to get to the portal quickly. It will take 3 days to get there. There's no time to waste. Dimensions and Worlds, Chapter 5. We went back in through the same door we had just come out of, back into the cafe. It was still empty. Go get Seesaw, Singinabob said to So. So disappeared through a door that looked like it would go to the kitchen. He reappeared with Seesaw following him. Singinabob looked at Seesaw. Seesaw, we need provisions for a 3-day trip, and we need them fast. Coming up, sir. Give me 5 minutes. Seesaw started back to the kitchen. So sat down and I joined him. Singinabob said, I have something to do, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Make sure you are here and ready to go. And with that, he once again pulled his instant disappearing act. Here 1 second, gone the next. I guess I was getting used to it, as it didn't surprise me at all. 5 minutes. 5 minutes to ask So some questions. It seemed like when I got one question answered, a million more popped up. I wasn't sure where to start. So, I started, you say Anslock is not in this world. Well, what world are we in right now? How many worlds are there? What is this portal? And how do we move from one world to another? That's a lot of questions, David, So replied. Let me start with the most complicated. Where we are right now. The universe, as I know it, is divided into dimensions and worlds. There are 9 dimensions, all running parallel to each other in concentric circles. The circles form a globe. Within each dimension, there are 9 worlds spread equidistant apart around their circle. Huh? I said. Yeah, that's pretty confusing, isn't it? It would be easier if I could show you a diagram. He tapped the table and the menu we had looked at earlier popped open. He tapped the home icon that I hadn't noticed before, and then I lost track of where he was going. Within seconds, a picture popped up that looked like this. So's universe. I looked at the diagram. Show me where we are, I said. So pointed to a point on the globe. We are here. This is D4W1, also known as Daggertooth, which means we are in Dimension 4, World 1. So continued. If we wanted to travel to another world within our dimension, in other words, within D4, we could do that almost instantaneously. So all 9 worlds in D4 are instantly accessible to us, I asked. Yes, responded So. But if we wanted to travel to another dimension, it takes longer. It takes 1 day to go from one dimension to another. For us to go to D5 or D3 would take us 1 day. If we wanted to go to D6 or D2, that would take us 2 days. Well, then Anslock must be in either D7 or D1, I suggested. Yes, responded So. That's correct. Anslock is in D1, D1W7 to be precise. Therefore, it will take us 3 days to get there. Okay, but which is it? Anslock or D1W7, I asked. Well, both, So explained. All the worlds were originally called by names. For example, in D1, the 9 worlds each had their own name, all beginning with the letter A. Anslock is World 7, W1. The names have more or less been abandoned now, and people refer to each world by their number instead. But if the names have been abandoned, why did I come up with Anslock instead of D1W7, I asked. I have no idea, So replied. You'll have to answer that question yourself. Just then, Seesaw reappeared. As he had been sent to acquire 3 days' supplies for us, I was expecting him to arrive back with a huge bag of food. I hadn't even had time to think about the possibility of spider soup or rat-tail stew. But I needn't have worried. What he arrived with was a small bag. And when I say small, I mean small. The bag was no bigger than my hand. Here are your supplies, So, Seesaw said. Right on time, too. Where is Singinabob? Wait a second, I said. How can that little bag contain enough food to last all 3 of us for 3 days? So and Seesaw looked at each other and smiled. So looked at me. I didn't get a chance to explain that part of it to you, David. When we travel from one dimension to the other, whether it is for 1 day or 6 days, we don't actually stay awake. We are not conscious for the trip. Supplies, in this case, means a solution that we inject ourselves with that puts us out for the exact amount of time it will take us to get to our destination. The solution also contains enough nutrients to keep our body healthy and happy during the trip. Inject ourselves? I asked. I was already feeling faint at the thought of sticking a needle in myself. I might have good intuition, but that did not make me brave when it came to needles. Don't worry, continued So. It's not so difficult. I can help you the first time. It only hurts a little bit. A little bit? Somehow So's words were not reassuring me. I started. How about I wait here and you two go on this little mission? You don't really need me now that you know where you were going. Dinkenhoff Biddlebug, what are you blinking blog talking about, David? Singinabob suddenly said, once more appearing out of nowhere. He was looking at me with total disgust, the same way my mother looks at me when I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. I just thought that, well, you know, the needle and everything. My voice kind of trailed off at this point. So, Singinabob said, let's go. We've got our supplies. Let's get to the portal and get on our way. David, I will not tolerate any more complaints from you. I am still not sure I believe in you the way So does. The truth will come out once we reach D1W7. You better hope for your sake and for So's that we find Daggerdoth when we get there, or you have a lot more to worry about than needles. Chapter 6. The Watsu and the Konai. As usual, with something I'm worried about, the needle was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So injected me, and all I felt was a little pinprick. We had traveled by foot from Seesaw's kitchen to another building just 10 minutes away. The door to this one had a cat on it as well, and even Singinabob had to give a secret word to get the three of us inside. I don't understand how or what transported us to D6, as I didn't have time to ask So about it. We were simply ushered into a room with 3 chairs where I was strapped in by So and given my injection. Within seconds I was out and wasn't aware of anything until I opened my eyes. I could only assume that 3 days had gone by, even though it seemed like seconds or minutes later. I felt fine, well rested, not the least bit hungry. However, I did have to go to the bathroom. I was apprehensive about mentioning my physical need, as Singinabob was, as usual, in a hurry to get going. But I felt it would be better to take care of this now rather than later. So, I whispered to him. He wasn't really listening, being more focused on following Singinabob. So, I whispered a little louder. This time he heard me and turned around. What? He asked. I have to, go, I said. Go where? He asked, looking confused. Is this another intuition, David? Do you know where you're supposed to go in Anslock? He looked excited now. No, I haven't really thought about it, but I kind of have to, I don't know why I was so embarrassed, but for some reason I moved closer and whispered in his ear, I have to go to the bathroom. Oh, So exclaimed. Why didn't you just say so? Singinabob, stop, So yelled. David needs to use the Watsu before we go. The Watsu? I've heard it called a lot of things, but never the Watsu. Singinabob stopped. Oh, all right, you humans. I don't understand why you can't just learn to recycle your wastes like I do, so you don't have to deal with that. Singinabob pointed to a door with the letters W-U written on it. Over there, and hurry up. When I entered the Watsu, I was hoping to find the appropriate facilities for a boy to use when he just has to do what can be done when standing up, if you know what I mean. And indeed, I was able to do just that. However, there were some other interesting devices besides the usual ones. The strangest was a large box on the floor filled with what looked like cat litter. The box was basically the same thing that our cat has at home, but about 20 times larger. Out of curiosity, I went over to look at it. On closer inspection, the litter looked more like lumps of charcoal, like you use on the barbecue. There was a sign posted on the wall beside this box. The sign read as follows: "Do not eat the litter." Well, they didn't have to worry about me. I wasn't about to eat any of the charcoal nor anything else I might find in there. I wondered what kind of an animal would use the box. It must be pretty large. Maybe Singinabob? Would he use it? But he said he recycled his waste material. What the heck did he mean by that, anyway? So wouldn't use it, would he? I mean, he was human, wasn't he? I hadn't really thought about this before. I just assumed So was human, but I had no proof. He had never told me where he was from. I went over to wash my hands, and just as I did so, the door opened and a creature came in. You'd think after seeing Singinabob and Seesaw, I wouldn't be surprised by anything. But I'm sorry, this animal was really weird. First of all, it was walking on all fours like a dog, but the body and the head were what made it really different. I'm not sure if I can describe it. Let's see. The body looked like it was made up of hundreds of pine cones, all sticking up straight. When the creature moved, the pine cones all banged against each other, making a rattling noise. The head was even weirder. No pine cones there. Instead, the head had one eye, and it was a big one, 10 times the size of my eye, placed right in the center of its forehead. Besides the one eye, it had 2 mouths. At least that's what they looked like, one on each side of its face below the big eye. The nose, between the eye and the mouth, was very wide, with huge nostrils and long, furry-like feathers protruded from each nostril. I told you it was weird. I watched as this animal went over to the huge cat box, climbed in, and did its business, more or less like a cat. When it was finished, it raked its huge feet over the charcoal. I forgot to tell you that its feet had huge claws on them, each claw measuring several centimeters in length. I wouldn't want to find myself up against them. When the creature finished, it climbed out of the box and, to my horror, turned and looked right up at me with that big eye. "Do you always stare at people when they are going to the bathroom?" the creature asked out of the left mouth of its grotesque head. I'm pretty sure I turned about 10 shades of red in embarrassment. I realized in my curiosity of taking in the sight of this creature, I had indeed been staring while it had been going about its business. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stare. I am new here, and well, you were so unusual. I mean, not that you're strange. It's just that I stopped, realizing that my words were making me look even more like a fool. Fortunately for me, the door opened and So entered. So looked at the creature, and then he looked at me. My face must have given away my predicament. "Is everything okay, David?" he asked. The creature answered, "Oh, everything is just absolutely fine. Your friend here, David, is it? Your friend David was just staring at me while I used the Watsu, and then told me the reason he did that was because I'm so strange and so unusual." Me? Strange and unusual? How funny. I could say the same thing about him. At least I don't stare at people when they are using the Watsu. "I'm sorry," So said. "David is a Nagahu, so he is not used to seeing the beauty of the Konai." "Ah," said the creature, or I guess I should say the Konai. "Well, I will forgive you this time, David, but please remember that on this world, my species is revered as most beautiful and intelligent. Also, I believe you saw my claws. They are somewhat, lethal." And with that, the Konai turned and rattled out of the bathroom. The Watsu. "Thank you, So. I've never been so embarrassed in my life," I said. It's okay, David, So replied. The Konai is indeed very strange. They are also very conceited. They truly do believe they are better looking and smarter than everyone else. Well, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as they say. Are you ready to go, David? So asked. Yes, I replied. I'm ready to go. I'll meet you outside in a minute, So said. I started to walk out the door, but was interrupted by So's voice. And, David, just in case you were wondering about me, physically, I am the same as you. It took me a few seconds to figure out what he was talking about, but then he went to take care of his business and, embarrassed again, I realized what he meant. I left the Watsu and went back to where Singinabob was waiting.